We're ready? This is Corporal Andrew Howton, Assistant Chief Perez here next to me. Today this is video-based learning on maintenance and cleaning of your firearm. First things first, you're going to want to make sure that your firearm is clear and empty. No magazine in the well, no round in the chamber. Also, prior to cleaning, you're going to make sure you want to have the proper cleaning equipment. I like to use foam gun cleaner. There's lots of different types of gun cleaners out there. CLPs, stuff like that. This is just a Hobby's Elite foaming gun cleaner. You spray it everywhere in here. You'll see here in a minute, it just foams, engulfs everything, and starts to clean, knock all the carbon and lead buildup inside. Also, you're going to need some lubricant or some grease. I like to use grease because a little bit goes a long way. Also, it really does help with, I feel, the cycling and the reliability of the firearm. This is another Hobby's product. It's called Step 4 High Performance Gun Grease. You can get this at Academy. This as well. It's about $15 for both of them put together. Another thing you're going to need is probably some Q-tips and these bore brushes and some of these bore sponges, as I like to call them. They're not really sponges. They're more like a cotton felt pad. And this is just for cleanup after you've already done your bore. So after you make sure your firearm is clear, slide lock back to the rear. You're going to look into the chamber, make sure that there's no round in there, there's no magazine in the well. Let the slide come forward. Always point it in a safe direction when you're going to drop the trigger. Alright, see that? You're going to pull back 1/4 inch on a Glock because this is mostly what everybody uses. These two levers you're going to pull straight down with your opposite hand. Push forward at the same time. Slide and frame come apart. First thing you're going to want to look at is, metal to metal contact and wear spots. See here, here, and here. These are the rails in which the slide ride on. Those you're going to need to make sure are very clean and lubricated. This is your recoil spring. It's captured. It's got a stainless steel one, and this one usually they come with polymer. This is your barrel. This is your feed ramp. You can see on this one it's pretty dirty. It goes off to the side. That goes off to the side. This is your slide with the barrel and the recoil spring assembly removed. You just want to inspect, metal to metal contacts, making sure there's no burrs, there's no deformation on the metal. You also want to check this little striker pin here, because this is where your trigger connects. Make sure that there's no burrs building up here on the top or on the sides, because that could lead to reliability issues. Also this ramp where the rounds in the magazine follow into this to go into the chamber. Also want to make sure that's nice and smooth and clean. There's no burrs, no hang-ups. Same thing here on your trigger plug safety here. Make sure that that's nice and clean. Some people take those out and polish them up just to make the trigger action a little bit easier. Also, you're going to want to look at your extractor. Make sure that it's got good spring tension to it. It's always going back into the center. It's no binding, no grit. Inspect that for wear, any type of, burrs or anything like that happening. If you use steel ammunition, it could cause some damage to your breech face, which is this piece right here where the firing pin comes out of, and also where your extractor meets the shelf of the round. If that's damaged, it might not grab onto the round and extract it, or it might, want to leave it in there and not want to come off, and then this gets broken. So first things first, when you're starting to clean it, I like to start with the frame since it's the easiest thing to clean. And I just basically just put a bunch of this foam cleaner in all these little spots here. Get it nice and foamy. And you can set that off to the side. Same thing with your slide. Get it nice and foamy. And this is going to sit for about 5 minutes. If you want, you can use a Q-tip, which is what I like to do, and get in there and work it into the hard to get spots. It'll pretty much work itself in there. You just gotta push it in. And you just want to make sure this whole thing is covered. You can wear gloves if you want to, but this is a non-toxic one that I'm using, so it's good to get it on your hands. You can clean the whole slide with it too. It's good at getting all that fingerprints and gunk off. Make your slide look brand new once you're done too. Safe for all the finishes. That's good. Stuff kind of has a weird smell to it. As this sits, the foam will dissipate and you'll start to see it kind of evaporate, and Once you start to see that happen, you know it's time to start cleaning and wiping the area. The only thing I do not have is towels. Next thing you're going to want to do is the barrel. While that sits, and basically you just stick this in the barrel, pump it so it comes out the other end. You can get a little bit on the outside too, because carbon does build up in these little spots down here. Most Glocks are DLC coated, which means diamond-like coating. So just like it sounds, it's as hard as diamonds. It's really hard to mess up the finish on those barrels and those slides. Your recoil spring, this is where it gets a bit touchy. You don't want to leave too much oil or too much cleaner on this thing. It's really kind of hard to clean. So what I like to do with this thing is I just like to rub it with a towel. I don't like to get all that stuff on there because that could cause rust or binding issues. May not, but I don't like to take the chance. This next to your magazine is what's going to make your gun reliable. Is your recoil spring and your magazine. Because a bad magazine will make a really reliable gun not reliable at all. And so will a recoil spring. So I just, see it's not that dirty. It's a little bit dirty, but you just kind of get in there between the little, get your fingernail, push down as far as you can. And you can lube this up with a little bit of that grease if you want to, but the drier this is, the better, because if you put grease or lubricant on here and you don't shoot it, you keep shooting it, or you have a dirty environment, dusty environment, dust is going to get on there. Dust sticks to grease, grease gets gritty, and it'll cause reliability issues. So that's pretty good as long as it looks nice and shiny like that. Clean it all up. You put that off to the side. As you see, some of the foam has started to dissipate, so we can go ahead and start cleaning this up if we want to. And I just like to go at it, for the most part with a paper towel to get most of the bulky stuff off. We're going to get in there with a Q-tip right now and get all the little hard to get areas. A lot of people like to skip cleaning out this mag well and making it look nice and clean. It's to your benefit to make sure everything is clean. Some people don't even pay attention to it. They just worry about this stuff. And that's okay, but cleaner the better. Some more Q-tips. It's a little time consuming, but what are you going to do? You're just at home not protecting people, you're going to be cleaning your gun. And it's fun after a while.
How often should you clean your gun?
Well, that's a good question. Cleaning your firearm, to me, is important because not only do you get into the internals and you start to see, what's going on, how many times you fired the firearm and, the wear that's happening on it. So I like to clean my guns regularly. Sometimes when I'm bored, even if I haven't even shot it, I'll take it apart and I like to clean it. I like to go through everything, look at all the metal parts that are wearing, because that could be something that nobody pays attention to, and you have an extractor that's getting worn, and you go months. Some people go years, months, their whole careers without pulling their service weapon and firing it, and let's say you never clean your gun in those years. That's going to create a lot of buildup and a lot of gunk in there that you're not going to want in the time when it comes to protect your life. So I like to clean my guns regularly, even if I haven't shot them, just because, for one, it's fun for me, and for two, I love the idea of having a reliable pistol on my side. And every time you fire. Just stuff that down in there, pull it through. This stuff works good at cleaning up the frame, making it look new again. Sometimes these black polymer frames will look dusty and ashy. See how nice and black it looks again. So that's almost done. Now we get in here with all this little other stuff. Now this cleaner that I used, it's a CLP foam cleaner. So if you don't get everything out of here, it's not going to damage or harm the gun. It's not going to mess up the plastic or the metal parts. It's actually going to be a little bit more protective of it. So I just like to get the bulk of it off to where it's not all foamy everywhere. And all down in these little parts right here are going to be nice and lubricated and clean. And it'll keep buildup from building up so soon and so fast, if you shoot a lot. Now I shoot a lot on my pistol, and I use a lot of that CLP and stuff like that, especially in the mag well. I hardly ever have to clean it out because it doesn't stick. It's almost like a non-stick coat. This is the stuff right here that I'm using. Check it out. It's got all this stuff on the back that you can use it for. They say just for bores and stuff like that, but it's pretty much for everything. So now finished with the frame. Frame is nice and clean. Let that dry up a little bit before I put some lube on it. Going on to the barrel now. Now the barrel, it's pretty much this, I would say one of the, you could say first or second most important part of the gun. One thing is you want to have a good bore brush. You don't want to have one that looks like this. I mean, this will still even work, but because the bristles are standing up. But like when it starts to get old, you'll know when you'll need to change it out. So this is 40 caliber, so I got to change this from 9 to 40. So this is a 9mm. This is a 40 caliber one. You can buy these kits. This thing right here was like $10 at Academy. I've had it for like 10 years. So you're going to want to make sure this feed ramp here is nice and clean. So you can just run your brush across. It's a DLC coating, so once you get that cleaner on there, this stuff pretty much wants to lift off, and you can see how clean that got just from doing nothing. See, it's very easy to get that clean. And this is an important part that you want to inspect too. You don't want to see any burrs on this line here, any burrs up here, because this is where your actual round hits, the nose of it hits right here like this, comes up and into the chamber. So you want to make sure that that is free of any type of debris or any type of damage. If it's damaged, buy a new barrel. Glock barrels are very inexpensive. You can get one with threaded, extended, ported, very inexpensive. So now that you got that clean, you want to clean the barrel hood, because this is where it locks into the slide. Any debris buildup there will keep it from going back into battery. So you just scrape that a couple times. This really awesome DLC coating keeps that stuff from sticking. See how nice and clean that looks. Now you just take this bore brush, and a lot of people like to sit there and go back and forth. What I found is over time shooting barrels, there's imperfections, and the copper and lead jacket sometimes will fill in those imperfections. And the more you scrape that lead and copper out, and it could cause damage to your threads. So I don't like to do that. I just like to do 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's pretty much clean. You could do a twisting action as you're going through it. Sometimes that helps clean out the rifling, but it shouldn't be too bad like that. So put on one of these little sponges. I don't have a 40 cal, but a 9mm one will work just fine. You're just basically getting the excess off and that carbon that you scraped off. Pretty much clean as a whistle, if you can get down in there, get a good little angle. That's good. That goes off to the side with the recoil spring. Now we're going on to the slide. Start with wiping the outside, getting all that excess stuff off. Let me get me a good towel. See how nice and clean it makes the slide look. Same thing with this, with the frame. I just get some towels in there and just start soaking up all that suds, all those suds. I'm going to show you a more deeper way to clean your firearm. Not a lot of people like to do it like this because they get finicky with it and they don't really want to take the gun apart this much. There's no problem with doing it like this. You basically pull the extractor all the way down. Hold on, let me finish cleaning it so it's not slippery. A lot of people like to skip cleaning in where the firing pin is, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. It's not a big area where a lot of stuff likes to accumulate, but like I said, you want to be as thorough as possible. you can see, just not even using a wire brush, just wiping it, how much cleaner it looks from all that carbon buildup on that ramp, on that trigger safety, and back here. You could get in here with one of these little brushes if you wanted to, just to get a little bit deeper in there. I like to find one of these rows of these things right here. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but I like to get that, and I like to drag it inside of those rails to really scrape whatever buildup is in there out. You see what I'm doing? Do it on the other side too. With your Q-tip, just slide it in there. Look at how dirty that was. And your rails will get dirty from not even firing your gun, from just sitting in your holster, sitting at home on the shelf. It'll just accumulate dust for some reason. Got like 5 of them that I was cleaning last night. They all had dust in there. I was like, I haven't even shot these in like a year. The rails, you really want to make sure they're nice and clean, because these rails inside here where I'm cleaning is what contacts this little metal piece here, and that's what slides the slide when it's reciprocating. So if there's anything in there that's going to cause an issue, believe me, it's going to cause an issue. Use the tip of the Q-tip to get in there, nice and deep. And usually they're pretty clean after that. If you really want to get in there, you can kind of flatten out and twist up your cotton swab, stuff it in there. Okay, so that's all nice and clean. Usually I have a tool for it. Okay, so to do what I just did, it's kind of hard to see on camera, but right here, you see this little spring, this little striker guide? When this is in there, it's kind of, you see how it goes down? I just got that little tool and I pressed it down and I slid up on this back plate to slide it out, and it comes right out. You want to make sure this is nice and clean. Then you take your firing pin out. You can see it's not dirty, it's not all corroded, but giving it a good wipe down and inspecting it is never a bad idea, because what likes to happen, especially if you dry fire a lot, is this face right here where this pin is will smack the inside of that breech face over and over and over again, and it might weaken it, it might break it, it might bend it. So taking it out, looking at it, wiping it off is good practice, you know, and it also lets you know how to take your gun apart that much further. So you get that nice and clean, put that over there with your clean parts so you don't get them mixed up. And then you just get a Q-tip. And this is your extractor spring right here. So this is what puts tension on your extractor to pull those spent rounds out. That looks nice and clean. That little polymer, I don't know if you see that, it's like polymer or plastic. That sometimes with heavy use can get melted or deformed. This one looks very good. It looks brand new. So you're good there. And then you just kind of get in there with your Q-tip. Now I would advise not heavily lubricating your striker spring or your striker guide, just due to the same reason as you wouldn't do that to your recoil spring. You don't want gunk to build up in there and cause any malfunctions. So once everything's nice and clean, everything's nice and smooth, you can get everything back together. And that's usually the hard part, because you have to depress this spring and this striker guide and that plastic thing down, but you do it once at a time. So let me show you how to do that. Just push down with your finger, make sure you have this thing in the right way. And see that? I've gotten the first part of it down. Now the second part, you're going to need a tool like a screwdriver like this, and you just press it in as you push up. Just wiggle it out of the way. Boom. It's in there, nice and clean. Striker's back in. One more wipe down on this. A lot of people don't scrub this breech face. I like to scrub the breech face just because lead, brass, copper can get built up in there. especially in these corners right in here. So quick, not too long. You ain't got to sit there for all day. Boom. At the top, the bottom. Try to move this out of the way so you can get in there. You know, you hear that? Getting out of my way. Okay. So your slide rails, everything's clean. Now, I like to do is one more time just go back, make sure I didn't forget any spots on the frame. Make sure there's not an excessive buildup of that cleaner that I put in there. Go back. By this time it's pretty much all dissolved and evaporated, so you don't have to worry about it. Get in there. Okay. Look nice and clean. I don't see any wearing on the rails. I don't see any wearing on back here where the trigger and the cruciform is. Everything looks good, nice and new. So we'll go ahead and put it back together. Starting with the slide and the barrel. The barrel goes in at kind of at a weird angle. Drops in. Make sure it's back. Fat part of the recoil spring assembly, or the polymer part, goes towards here in this big hole. And you see that there's like 3 little ledges on that. I don't know if you can see in there. There's like 3 ledges on this. So this is the first ledge. This second ledge is where the back of this recoil spring is going to sit, just like that. So you're going to have to compress it a little bit with your thumb as you get it back on there. And I like to hold it like this. Just push up with my thumb and guide it in with my thumbnail. When it's in there, it's nice and slack. And you can check to make sure that it's working, functioning perfectly by just pushing the slide out of the barrel out of battery, and it pushes it back in. If you do this and it stays like that, there's something wrong. There's a burr, there's something built up here, there's something you didn't clean right, maybe a piece of napkin got stuck there. So just always check before you put everything back together, you know, that it doesn't stick. Okay? You saw it sticking there, it's only because didn't have no lube on it. So I like to lube on the barrel where it comes in contact with a lot of metal. So up here on the barrel hood, I like to put a little bit right here on these edges. Down here, where it comes in and out of battery. And this stuff is kind of hard to use. I didn't really like it, but I mean, it's okay. I just usually put a little bit there, and I use my Q-tip to apply it where I want. A little bit goes a long way. You don't need to like drench it in there. But all right in here is where all these metal parts are going to be sliding against each other, and you don't want it to be too dry, but then again, you don't want it to be too wet to where stuff starts accumulating. So that's in there. Put that back in the slide. We'll put the recoil spring assembly back in. So that's good to go. Now for the frame, a couple parts that I like to make sure are really lubricated are these rails. Right? I don't like to really lubricate the inside of the slide, but I will put some on the rails right here because it'll get there either way. Just a little dab on each one. Not too much. Little goes a long way. And that's pretty much it. You know, right here where you see with the metal wearing is where you want to make sure this lube gets on there. And it's not too much, not too little. Just the right amount. And this is another. This assists with that ramp to keep the round straight as it's coming into the chamber. This little piece right here. So lubing that up will do you some good. Metal parts here, metal parts there, metal parts there. Doesn't have to be too crazy. Like I said, the more you put on there, the more you have gunk building up, and the more likely it is that you'll have a malfunction. Forgot to do this one right here. This is one that I like to do. It helps with trigger pull. You put a little bit of lubricant on this trigger safety plunger right here. A little bit right here on the striker spring. It just helps with guiding those two metal pieces sliding against each other. So you make sure it's function, make sure the trigger works, and you're pretty much good to go after that. This is a Glock setup. You know, this is pretty much universal for most platforms, CZs, M&Ps. They have a lever that comes down. Sig Sauers, they have levers that you take out. But it's pretty much all the same. They all have rails. They all have striker guide assemblies. Everything is pretty much the same and built as the same design, you know, off of the Glock because it's the Almighty. So anything else that you can do to maintain your firearm would be practicing with it as well, shooting it. making sure that you can use different types of ammunitions, different stress situations, so that it is reliable and you can defend your life with it. So